All right, for today's video review, we're going to be taking a look at Transformers Generations Shattered Glass Collection, Blurr. Now, the Shattered Glass Collection, in April, I think, of this year, we had this online event, this Hasbro Pulse Fan Fest, and there they announced that they were going to be doing this continuing line of Shattered Glass figures, which, if you're unfamiliar, Shattered Glass is basically, Transformers version of the typical sci-fi trope of like the mirror universe where all the good guys are evil and all the evil guys are good. I think Star Trek was maybe the first series or franchise rather to introduce the concept, but it's been done in a lot of different sci-fi concept and sci-fi franchises and stuff like that. So yeah, we've got our evil version of Blurr here, and the Shattered Glass collection, though we had gotten a couple other Generation Selects Shattered Glass figures in a box set together, Optimus Prime and Ratchet. The Shattered Glass collection, of which Blurr is the first, is, kind of a more exclusive line where they have slightly debatably more premium like paint jobs and stuff like that. And then they also come with a pack-in comic, which in the case of Blurr, I mean the comic itself is not exclusive, but the cover of it is. And this one, it's pretty nice. I love this sort of like they have a slightly more reflective paper for all the like shattered glass sections on here. So when you like move it about, it shimmers in really interesting ways. What's kind of funny to me is this was like not even packed in the box. Like I got my the brown box from Hasbro Pulse, and inside the box was the packaged up figure in his own box, and then just the comic was there separately, which is kind of funny to me because like the comic is like much larger than the package for the figure actually is. Not really an issue or anything, just something that I thought it was kind of funny. But yeah, it's a nice looking cover. But yeah, this is the first one that we've gotten of these. We've gotten 5 revealed so far, and I'm guessing from there they're probably going to like see how well those sell before they decide to do more of them. But yeah, Blurr is the first one that we got here, and he looks pretty slick in his car mode. I like this lightning detail there, which is it's homaging the original Shattered Glass Blurr toy, which was a some convention exclusive. I think those were all either BotCon or FunPub. I can't remember, but it was a repaint of the Cybertron Blurr mold, which was a retool of the Armada Blurr mold, just with a more G1 accurate head sculpt. But yeah, that's what the lightning and it just like the general paint scheme is referencing, is that original Shattered Glass Blurr toy. But yeah, it looks pretty slick. He comes with the same exact weapons as Studio Series 86 Blurr, because if I didn't say it, this is just a repaint of Studio Series 86 Blurr. There is one bit of retooling in the head in robot mode, but yeah, it comes with the same weapons here. The gun and the little hand welder thing. And unfortunately, they store in the same kind of lackluster way where you've got your slots right there, tab right there. You can plug the gun on like that. And for the welder, 2 little tabs, 2 little slots. Just plug it on like that. And yeah, I mean, I don't think that looks particularly good. I think it sticks out like super awkwardly and is asymmetrical too. So it's like, I don't love that. I'm probably just going to take these parts and put them in a box and act like he doesn't have any weapons. But that is how you're supposed to store them. In terms of comparisons, here he is with, well, first of all, just a standard size comparison. Here he is with Siege Sideswipe, just so you can see what they look like together. Oops. Spoilers. Here he is with the original Studio Series 86 Blurr. So you can see, obviously in this mode, they're pretty much the exact same mold. So no proportional differences or anything there, but you just can see what the different paint schemes look like together. And then, yes, here he is with the Shattered Glass Ratchet and Optimus Prime that was a Generation Selects box set. So, though they're not part of the Shattered Glass collection, they're still Shattered Glass characters. So, yeah, they look pretty good together. In terms of transformation, obviously it's the exact same transformation as Studio Series 86 Blurr. You start off kind of disconnecting these, I guess, pylons on the side here. I find the easiest way to do it is rather than just like yanking it to the side to kind of rotate this bit out a little bit, because this slot, doesn't have a bottom to it and it's kind of like a hook tab there. And then it sort of like loosely connects into this blue piece just by like having parts sit in there. So it's easier to kind of do that just by rotating these pieces out. And you just bring these down to the side for now. I guess one thing I haven't mentioned is like, so one of these feet are supposed to tab into these blue sections, and for whatever reason, this foot in particular, just like the tab just feels way too big for that slot, and it just doesn't connect. It's kind of ends up being a non-issue because you can just like take the foot and put it at an angle like that, and like visually it doesn't change anything. It still sits just fine, and it's also a pretty easy problem to fix if I just wanted to like, you know, either sand down or take a knife to that tab and just shave it down a little bit so it fits. Not a huge deal, doesn't ultimately affect anything, but worth mentioning. But yeah, you do want to untab the feet from these blue sections here, and then fold these into the front like that. And then the slot on those blue pieces that's revealed, you want to take the armatures that these whole sections, which will be the robot mode arms, you slide that up into there and lock that into place. And then on the bottom here, you want to take, these will be the robot mode shins, and just untab them and fold them out to the side like that. Unfold them at the knees, then separate the legs so that you can take the little fin on the top of the car mode and fold it into one of the legs. And then you can take the shins and just fold them right back over where they were before. And then fold down the feet, take the little seat from his car mode and fold it into his stomach. Bring down the arms. And then these sections, they only rotate one direction. Like you can't rotate them that way. You have to rotate them this way. And then you fold these onto the back of his arms there. He's got this little panel here that kind of automatically unfolds when you're bringing that over, just to give the hand clearance to get out of there. And then you just push that back in. So yeah, I'll do the same thing on this side, fold that to the back, take the chest here, rotate it around, which unlocks this piece so that you can now double hinge it and kind of click it into the back there. And there you have Shattered Glass Blurr in his robot mode. And yeah, he looks pretty good. I love his new head sculpt here. They've kind of given him extra detail with the, he's got like a smirk and the little eye patch and the little like scrapes on his face, which actually are sculpted into the mold itself. It's not just paint. And yeah, it looks pretty good. Articulation wise, obviously it's just the exact same as the figure before. So the head is on a ball joint here. It's sort of like the whole neck is part of the head joint there. So like you're rotating that as well. It's just, I guess, worth mentioning. It doesn't really affect anything, but the shoulders can rotate around like that. They're on these like, you know, clicky joints, just like the original one, which is a little bit annoying just because like generally when I pose figures and I just want them in sort of like candid standing poses, I like to have the shoulders tilted back just a little bit and then bend the elbow a little bit, but still have the arm kind of straight up and down. Whereas, you know, his is either totally parallel with the body or back like that, which is quite a difference. So, you know, it's not a huge deal. It just makes him look a little bit stiff in some poses that he otherwise wouldn't. So, whatever. For outward movement, you do get a little bit of like just outward movement with this piece connected, but it also, in addition to that, you can fold it up on that joint, which again, maybe looks a little bit strange, but you know, it works fairly well. He's got a bicep swivel, 90 degrees of bend at the elbow there. The wrist joint, like the wrist is actually attached to this thing. So though it does rotate, you're bringing this whole thing with it. So it doesn't really work as that, but that's all right. It's got a waist swivel. It's got universal joints at the hips here so they can go forward and back and out to the side. It's got a thigh swivel, about 90 degrees of bend at the knee there. And then the feet have some tilt to them, and then they can also kind of click up and down. The clicky joints on the feet are like a lot softer than the original Studio Series Blur mold, and like generally a lot of the joints feel a little bit looser. Like it's not super floppy or anything. It's just like it, you know, the mold degradation on this guy is showing a little bit like, which is a little bit odd since, you know, it's only the second use of that mold, but whatever. It's not too bad. It's just kind of noticeable. But yeah, you can obviously bring on his accessories here. His gun, you can just hold in his hand like that. His little welder just fits over either one of his hands and just gives him a little arm welder. In terms of storage, you could take this and peg it up here. I don't know. I think that looks dumb, but that's an option. Or, of course, you can just put them back where they were in car mode, which works a little bit better here. So you can just tab the gun back where it was, and tab the welder back where it was. And then this section, it still is able to click in place. It does change the angle that this sits on his back a little bit, but from the front, I don't think it really messes with the silhouette or anything like that. It certainly doesn't get in the way. Like the gun is kind of awkwardly sticking out down there, but it works. But again, I don't think that storage works particularly well for vehicle mode. So for me, I'm just going to put these to the side. But, that is where they can store in robot mode. For comparisons, here he is again with Siege Sideswipe, just for that standard size comparison. Here he is again with his other Shattered Glass guys. Here's Ratchet and Optimus Prime. So you can see, yeah, they look pretty good together. Even though, they're not a part of the Shattered Glass collection, like, they're all fine. They work well together. And then here he is again with Studio Series 86 Blurr. So just so you can see some of the differences there, and the sculpt of the head, which is completely different. And it's kind of a bummer for me, honestly, because like the one lasting complaint I had about this figure is that the head sculpt just looks kind of derpy, and like this guy proportionally just looks so much better. It's not just that the only differences are the smirk and the eye patch. Like also, when you look at his head sculpt, the chin sticks down kind of like awkwardly below his like helmet there, and the helmet is like sort of wrapped around his head rather than it feeling like his head is like in his helmet. Whereas with this guy, the chin is right, the helmet like feels like more like it's actually on his head. If you just like see what I'm talking about there proportionally, like he just looks a little bit awkward. And I wish really that we had gotten this head sculpt on this guy, although obviously without the eye patch and the smirk and stuff like that. But that really says more about him than it does with him. But yeah, otherwise they look pretty good together. Like I said, it's like, yeah, the joints feel maybe like a little bit looser. Like it's not too terrible. There's just some spots where it's like if you listen to like this compared to this, like it's a noticeable difference. But it's like it's not like the feet ratchets needed to be that stiff on the original one anyway, so it doesn't matter a whole lot. But worth mentioning. But yeah, so he's a pretty good figure overall. The one thing to talk about with this guy is so typically, at least right now, and when this guy was coming out, deluxes are kind of falling between that like $21.99 now moving into $23.99 or $22.99. I can't remember exactly price point. Whereas this guy and all the other, at least the ones of this size class, for the Shattered Glass collection cost $29.99, which is really like Voyager price. And it's the same with like the ones that have been announced that are Voyagers. They don't cost leader price, but they cost like, about like $6 to $10, $8-ish more than the, original uses of the mold. And it's like, okay, they come with the comic. I don't really know if I wanted to pay like an extra $8 for a comic with an exclusive cover. And like, supposedly they've got like a higher premium on the paint and stuff like that. I guess like, the head sculpt is nice. The lightning bolts are nice, but I don't know if there's really enough there to justify that price. Whereas like, especially when, since deluxes have been getting, like all Transformers have been getting just gradually more and more expensive over the past few years. Like they've been obviously going up in price for a while now, but there's been a few more frequent jumps recently. Like just like a few years ago, deluxes cost $17.99, and now we're getting to $23.99. And it's not been that long at all. So it's already kind of pushing it for deluxes to cost that much. So then to take a deluxe and be like, oh yeah, now this costs $30 because it comes with a comic. It's like, we're pushing it a little bit, Hasbro. Like we're getting into territory where it's just like, okay, come on. This is really starting to feel scummy at this point. Like it definitely does kind of feel like an experiment to see like how much are people willing to pay. And like, if it's just the odd exclusive figure here and there that costs more, that's one thing. But like, the price that it is, marked up from is already a little bit too high to be just like a general retail deluxe. So it's like, I don't know, getting a little bit worrisome for the future of how this stuff is going. But he's a good figure. I'm glad that I got him. I do have most of the other Shattered Glass figures pre-ordered. The only one that I'm for sure not getting is Jetfire, just because like that's where I've got to draw the line. I'm not gonna buy that same commander class mold more than once. I don't need a Shattered Glass Jetfire. That's fine. I'm happy with just having him the ones. Like he's a good figure, the original commander class Jetfire, don't get me wrong, but I don't need two of them. Like Deluxes, I'm happy to own the same mold several times. Commander classes, unless it's like two characters that I really, want, is like, nah, I'm just gonna do one and done for those guys. If they do a Shattered class, Commander class Rodimus with like the goatee and stuff, that might get me a little bit more intrigued. But Jetfire, I can skip. So far, like a lot of them look pretty good. What's kind of a bummer is like they've split them up between being three Autobots and two Decepticons, which is fine. There's only 5 figures, so you can't split them up totally evenly. But when you consider the fact that outside of the Shattered Glass collection, we also did get these two recently, it's starting to feel like we've got a lot more Autobots than we have Decepticons. So hopefully, if this does well and they continue making them, that the second wave of these guys will have more Decepticons. The one design that I really would like to see is I'd like them to do a Shattered Glass Soundwave, and maybe give them some accessory for that like stupid little head bandana that the design has. But yeah, that's like the one that I would really like to see. But other than that, I'm just going to be kind of picky and choosy about which ones I get. Because I don't know, maybe if Blurr wasn't the first one released and was exciting, then I might have skipped him, because the other ones feel a little bit cooler to me. Like, the Megatron is the one that I'm really excited about, because it actually has like different accessories and stuff like that to like kind of reshape the alternate mode, which feels like more of that extra price is actually going into the figure in some regard, whereas it's like, yeah, he's got a new head sculpt, he's got nice paint, and obviously the comic is a nice cover, but I don't know, $30 is pushing it a little bit. But yeah, either way, that's, up to personal preference, obviously, for if you really like these guys. But yeah, if you enjoy my videos, make sure to leave a like and consider subscribing. I do reviews every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. And without further ado, here we have Transformers Generations Shattered Glass Collection Blurr.